Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the fifth Wednesday of the month, which is Humpday. And that's where myself and Rob Fisher get to host Straight Talk. Today we got a wonderful guest, Adam Neff, Assistant Chief Adam Neff, who I'm going to let Rob introduce and Adam introduce himself. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is DeGryse. I'm retired out of Chicago now 2.5 lovely years, going on 3. Getting some time in retirement and enjoy doing this for Bobby, who's here a little bit busy right now, but he's going to join us as he sees fit. But I'm going to let Rob do the rest of the introduction because he was in charge for this month. But welcome. We'll be talking in a second. Rob?
Thanks, Danny. For those that don't know me, I'm Rob Fisher. I'm a battalion chief in Snohomish County here in the state of Washington. And I'm also the peer support coordinator for my department. And Danny, I think we saw each other when I was in Vegas. You were in Vegas for a conference a month or so ago. And you lived through the hot weather of Vegas. I see that. So you did good.
Yeah, 112 degrees. Come on. I don't care if it's hot, sticky, or wet, but it's 112 degrees no matter what.
It's a dry heat. It's a dry heat. But it's good to get back together. Our last show was with Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas. And if you want to watch it, if you haven't seen it, you can go on to YouTube, Fire Engineering. It was June 29th. And you can watch that show. It was a great show. I was working that day, so I ended up having to go out on a call. And so I didn't get to finish the show. But it's always good having the doctor around with us and talking about suicide and prevention. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it here with Adam. I'm going to let Adam introduce himself mostly, but I'll just say that I've known Adam for a number of years. We've done a couple podcasts together talking about, I think we did a blog talk for Fire Engineering on formal education. I don't remember if Bobby jumped on with that one with us or not, but we've done some things and we've talked about mental health over the years, and not the let the cat out of the bag, but you took it one step further than most of us and decided to become a clinician. So Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you work, and let's stay on the fire side of things, and we'll get into the mental health professional side.
Sure. I appreciate the opportunity. I work for a fire district in Southwest Missouri called Nixa, and I've been with this organization 28 years total, including some volunteer time. Spent time as a firefighter and a driver and a company officer and a battalion chief. And about 4.5 years ago, I was promoted to Assistant Chief of Training and Operations. We're a small career department. We run out of 3 stations, about 5,000 runs a year, non-transporting ALS service. And I really love the fire service. So, yeah.
I think when we go back to one of our previous conversations about formal education, that is probably one of the motivating factors that maybe pushed you into going to a next level. I think you had your master's in something, and then you decided to become a clinician. What was the motivation behind that? Or, if you're already a fire chief or a chief officer, why become a clinician?
It's funny because this actually kind of came up from Chief Halton when he was down in my area for another reason. On another visit, we were talking about, I was kind of at this crossroads of whether or not I was going to pursue a master's degree or EFO. And he held a knife to my throat, told me, "Don't you dare do EFO." No, he just kidding. He's really encouraged me to look at all my options, even beyond the fire service, and what I could use both of those avenues for. So I did pursue a master's degree in emergency services management. And then about the same time frame, I had one of my members come up to me, and we were talking pretty informally late at night one night, and said that he was going to kill himself. And I didn't know what to do with that. We were going through hazmat physicals at the time, and he expressed this to the Ahmed doctor. And the Ahmed doctor pulled out his little suicide checklist out of his billfold, checked all the boxes, and said, "Yeah, you should probably go see a professional." And that's that. And that, between that experience, I started seeking out some training and some classes. Discovered my own mental health issues, some unhealthy coping strategies that I had developed for survival through my career and through my life. And I thought, I really have the ability to take complex systems and put them in a way that helps people understand them through stories and metaphors. And I really enjoyed the work. I was actually talking to Chief Halton before this, that I really love the clinical side almost as much as I do the fire service. I'm not ready to give up the fire service yet or move on to other things, but I really do enjoy going to the office, seeing clients, seeing the progress they've made, learning about the job. Very similar to the fire service. You're always progressing, you're always learning. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I struggled with how do I talk to people who are from bigger departments that have way more experiences than I do. What could I possibly offer them? And then on the flip side, how do I balance my own internal biases with people that maybe only went to one car wreck and they can't do the job anymore because of that one car wreck? And so I give a lot of props to my wife, because she's like, "Well, why do you spend so much time teaching young people when they get into the job?" And it's like, well, so they'll get better. Yeah, you're doing the same thing. You may not have some earth-shattering observation or nugget to offer someone who's worked in Chicago for his whole career, but there may be something in a different perspective or presented in a different way that makes it click. So I quit feeling sorry for myself and kept doing the papers and kept doing the internships and chugging along. And 192 credit hours later and 1,000 clinical time hours later, I was able to graduate with my master's in clinical mental health. And I've been a practicing clinician now for about 4.5, 5 months. So.
Well, congratulations. I mean, it's got to be a lot of work. I have worked on my master's, but I've never gone that far. We're looking to get a clinician, becoming a clinician myself. I'm kind of going to go a little bit off script here. We haven't had a chance to introduce Bobby or give Bobby a chance to talk, but both for Bobby and Danny, since both of you guys see way more people than I do, and Danny in the profession of mental health, is it very common to see firefighters take on something like this or in the fire service today? And Bobby, you can go ahead and open up and say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Well, I think it's refreshing. I think it's great. And I think that, especially if a, military cat or a cop or a firefighter needs to talk to somebody, having guys like Adam and Dan around, we were talking before we started that I think the number one thing we miss when we leave the job is the ability to just, bust chops with reckless abandon. You know what I mean? Like Dan and I rarely say, "Hey, how's it going?" He'll send me a text that says GT, which means good talk. And I'll reply, "Yep." And that's all and we're good with that. And it's like, it's him giving me a hard time, me giving him a hard time. And then, and I was giving Adam a hard time because his real name is Adam Scooter Neff, because he was showing off his balance and prowess on one of those silly scooters at FDIC. And like most firefighters who show off their prowess on scooters, ended up in the ER. So, with an injury, like Scooter Gray, Sean Scooter Gray, who really hurt himself bad. I mean, he got hurt really badly. So, I mean, those things are amazing. But anyway, But
You digress.
But being able to do that, right? In other words, that's a big piece of our culture. And if you're not an insider, I mean, this is remember the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Well, this is inside baseball, man. And if you're not in our culture, you start going there. Like if you walk into your psychologist's office and you start saying, hey, nice outfit. You still shopping in the men's? When are you going to start shopping in the men's department? They're going to look at you like, what's wrong with you? But if you don't do that to me, like I'm wearing half a pair of pants today. I'm wearing a children's outfit. So that's, I got my little Grateful Dead fire department shirt on, right? I mean, if people don't give me a hard time about that, then they're not really my friends. My friends will say, yeah, what's the matter? Frank Sinatra shirts weren't available. You know what I mean? You're going to have, I love stuff like that. You know what I mean? I just do. So I think that having, guys and gals that have walked the walk and talked the talk, is important. There's a great saying that the Navy uses, my son gave me. And it says, if you don't know what's expected of your people and you don't know what they're going through, then you don't know what you're doing. And I think for clinicians, it's not always critical, but we've got kind of a unique gig. You know what I mean? I really believe that. And so it's great to have clinicians who can walk the walk, talk the talk. And Adam, I think irrespective of the size of your job, just the fact that you're on the job, that's the nugget, man. I mean, the conversation's the same at the tables at the FDNY in Chicago and Detroit as it is in Collinsville and other smaller communities across the country. It's the same rap, you know what I mean? And it's the same stuff that's beating us up. You know what I mean? It's the same stuff, survival, stuff like that. So.
Thanks, Bobby. And we'll just, we got a couple of people in the chat room. Johnny Walters, our good buddy from Sons of the Flag and FDNY, saying hello to all of us. And then from the Philippines, Eric Abria. So appreciate you guys tuning in live with us today. Danny, what's your experience of seeing clinicians or firefighter clinicians?
Yeah, so that didn't happen in the past, right? The only people that came on the job or were on the job were veterans, laborers, and people that couldn't get other jobs. We'll even go back to when that it wasn't a job that people wanted to take. So when the Irish came across, that they were the ones that were taking that, and the police, jobs, low paying, non-unionized, again, low paying, dangerous jobs. It's a different world now, but I could tell you in my, the 30 years I spent in Chicago, there was nobody else in a department that did what I did. And I started in the field, actually, even crazily more, started in the behavioral health field before I got in the fire service. That was because 45,000 people took our exam and I had to wait. I didn't do as well as I expected. I landed about 1,000 on the list, which isn't too bad. But it took 4 years to get on, so I had to do something else other than lifeguard. So I figured, let's go into behavioral health. And now you're hearing more about it. I could shoot it back to Bobby and say that when I met him 7 years ago, to his dismay, and we had a discussion about mental health to some degree. I could tell he was more adversarial than responsive. He's like, we don't need that crap, and it just, lick the wound and move on. And we've had a discussion at one of the symposiums we did in the sense of his and others understanding of the stigma and behavioral health to where it is now. So the point is that you see more people that are interested in it, realize that it has to be in the chief's repertoire. Bobby had kind of just mentioned something about the National Fire Academy. I had that ask the other day. Is there a portion of behavioral health, mental health awareness, clinical understanding in the EFO program? I mean, it took 25 years to finally make RIT mandatory at every fire scene. Go back to the first discussions. No way, we can't put a whole company out in front and just have them sit there and protect our six. Now I think the discussion is why is it taking so long for men and women in the fire service to be that person, to be willing to have that conversation? We've had those informal discussions amongst people, but where are the people that, like Adam, that will be willing to get that formal training, that already have that cultural awareness? I think across the country now, let's just be honest, that there might be one, maybe two programs in the country in all the higher institutions that have anything specifically focused on cultural awareness clinically for frontline workers, no matter who they are, dispatchers, EMS, nurses, doctors, anything. I mean, come on, it's 2022. The hell are we waiting for? But it really takes somebody, and I'll give Bobby the accolade about this, is to put that on the front burner, not in the back burner. Put it in the front, make it happen. He made mental health awareness available internationally by putting it on the stage. And so thanks to him, we've done that. I don't know the impetus on why he was willing to change his thought on that, or just that I was a dynamic persuader and getting him to. But there usually is. What is it? Is it personal? Is it professional? Why? And really, that's a question to Adam, because we're seeing more people that will ask me, say, hey, where should I go to get some training so I can help our brother and sisters, not only that are working, one's getting on a job and thereafter. What was the impetus, Adam? Why? What was your why?
Yeah, I think for me, I always prided myself on, being a member of the team that could help out, if it's time management, if it's stretching, if it's throwing ladders. And now I have an individual that I'm responsible for that I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with a guy that's telling me that he's going to kill himself. And I think through that drive of trying to be all that I can be to everybody all the time, no matter how unrealistic that is, that put me on a path. And then through my own unhealthy coping strategies and whatnot, got to that point of really wanting to fill a gap that was identified. Now, I don't have experience in using illicit drugs. It doesn't mean I can't provide support to someone who abuses substance. I don't have to have experience in every single thing that I possibly will interact with to be a good clinician. But for my why, it was really, first it was to serve others, and then ultimately it was to serve myself, to get me to a spot where I needed to be at.
Just out of curiosity, because I know we have a set of questions for you, was there at any point you're like, hey man, this is too big of a hill to climb?
About every Wednesday and Saturday when papers were due, and then trying to manage internship through a national pandemic, trying to get hours for graduation. Yeah, I felt that all the time because I was still working here. I mean, the phone's ringing off the hook. I don't even know this person. It's not even my desk, so I don't even know, right? So I think it's at points not to be cliche, but if it's important to us, we'll find time, we'll find a way. I have an amazing wife and support system even get a little choked up a little bit about really thinking about the path that I'm on. I wish I could say it was all because of me, and it really wasn't. It's really because of everybody. So yeah, it's really cool. Do I want to give up? Yeah, but I don't want to be labeled as a quitter either. So I know it doesn't guarantee success, but if I'm not going to be successful, it's not going to be from a lack of trying. And I don't have any background. I didn't have any background in clinical health, or didn't think. I mean, I barely graduated high school. I have a learning disability, so my reading comprehension is virtually zero. So that means I had to find a different way to learn. And I'm grateful that I was able to keep pushing and find my way. So did I want to give up? Yeah, like after the first 92 credit hours. And then after, even though I got down to the last internship, I thought there's just no way I can manage all this. And I was lucky. I had a great support system.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty and the vulnerability on that. And when Rob asked that question, it is not an easy mountain to climb, because it's a different venue. It's like going from the engine in a truck, or the truck to the squad, or the squad to an engine. Fire service, but it's different venues. And to get into the clinical world, and then as you just mentioned, some of the barriers, not to mention time, money, criticism, being in that group and other people going, oh, that guy's a firefighter and he wants to be a clinician. What's wrong with him, right? We have that social stigma. So the fact that we were able to, Rob reached out to Adam, and me and you have had a couple of conversations. Believe me, can you imagine back in the 80s when I came on the job in Chicago and they found out that I was clinical? You don't think I had a few words thrown at me, which I expect from Bobby currently, now and then. But thankfully, I looked at it as not as my limitation, but theirs. Even back then, it really, and again, we're in the field of change and shifting things from a safety standpoint and from a behavioral health standpoint. Can we shift the thought process? That's all we do. And some people do it with a Louisville Slugger, and some people do it with words. Bobby does it with both. Clinically, we try to do it with simple words, as well as mentoring and modeling it. So you modeled something just now and for the last umpteen months that really should be the current culture. What greater task than to take care of our own, right? That's RIT, that's rehab. But we usually shun that away. So I'll stop talking and turn it over to Bob.
No, you did say earlier that you got pulled in by Bobby. Remind me of what year was your keynote? It was like in the 70s or something, if I remember correctly, right?
Well done, Rob. I like that. Yeah, that doesn't sting that much. I mean, thankfully, I'm not the oldest one here, but I won't say who is. It was
Bobby brought up
2018.
Frank Sinatra, and they were born the same year.
2018, and
I served in Hoboken with his dad. Frank Sinatra's old man was a Hoboken firefighter.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. So 2018 was your keynote, Danny. And that's where Straight Talk, where the show came from. So those that are listening that want to hear what Danny had to say on the stage, it was great. And it led to this show. So you can look that up. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess, we've been talking about, I want to go off the questions or script a little bit more, just because what has changed in the American Fire Service that has got us to this point, or is it a societal thing that, because all of the clinicians I know from my peer support team, they're all booked up. It's hard to find a clinician. And in addition to it, it's hard to find a clinician that is prepared to deal with first responder, police or fire or military. But what has changed? We'll give it to Adam first, but what's changed that the reason we need more of this?
I think it's interesting because, like, when I was looking for a site, I really thought I was going to have to do my own thing because I couldn't find a site that would allow me to see clients in the evenings and on weekends. Like, we want to meet the client where they're at, as long as it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And to me, that was always a barrier to mental health. Like, well, I just can't take off work. I can't lose the income to go take care of myself. So for me, I knew that I still wanted to work at the firehouse, and I needed to be able to see clients in the evenings and on the weekends. And what I found was I did land at a site that's a remarkable site that allows me to see clients at any time of the day and night that I want to. I charge whatever I want to. And I think for the clinician side, and this was one of my essay questions to get accepted into the school, was training clinicians. I think clinicians miss the cultural component of our industry. I also think that the clinicians see our repetitive trauma and experiences similarity because they don't have anything to compare it to, as they do other civilians in the real world. And really our culture and our identity is not a whole lot different than civilians. It's all humanistic experiences. But for me, I work at a self-pay, private pay. So like right now, I've had clients do this. On Sunday, I get a message, hey, I heard that you're in the service or in the clinician field, mental health world. I saw a post on Facebook. Yep, I am. I'm seeing clients on these days. Here's my phone number if you know of anybody. And then 2 days later, I'll get another message back from that same person. Hey, I think I need to see somebody. Do you have any availability? Yes, I could see you on Wednesday, Thursday, or Sunday, or I'll squeeze you in on a Saturday morning. And they're just totally blown away by that, because other places it's 3, 6, 9 months before they can see somebody. So I think there is a societal change. I think in our coming up, we just bared down or we leaned into it more. And now we see struggles and people leave the job because they'd rather leave the job than tell somebody if they're struggling or be vulnerable with their family, their fire family. And here I am, crying on a live feed with people that I look up to and our mentors. And I don't even feel bad about that. I don't have any feelings about it. You could totally bust my chops for it, and I'm totally okay, because where I'm at, both emotionally and mentally, I'm feeling really good about it. Actually, I was able to be vulnerable with people that I look up to. How do I communicate that to the rest of the fire service? And so we start changing the mentality of chief officers and company officers to say it's okay to tell your people that you're pissed off or that you're frustrated with their behavior. I had company officers in my own department say I had to remove myself because I was becoming too emotional. And I'm like, they need to see that. They need to see that this job has real impact on people. So both in the clinician world, I think they struggle with clinicians, and I'm working on a class through my site to help train clinicians to, I've had firefighters tell me that they use swear words in a session, and the clinician referred them to a different clinician because of the language that they were using. And it's like, not everyone's cut out to see our population, and that's okay. But that's some of the struggles and barriers that firefighters see when they finally get to that point of needing someone beyond a peer support system. I'm not even sure if I answered the question, but at least I talked a bunch.
Hey, Adam, can you answer that phone and have Bobby tell him to stop calling?
It's my freaking wife. It's my wife.
I thought he was actually calling me. I thought
just ignore it. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Bobby, how about your thoughts on this?
Oh, I don't know if you want to hear them.
Always.
I think that everybody's different, right? Like, I've always found that channeling my inner Colonel Jessup has worked really well for me. You know what I mean? And that's me. Other people, don't, and that's good for them, right? So I think to Adam's point, I don't know that we've changed as a culture. I don't know that we've changed as a service. That's a big statement, right? I mean, that's a really big statement. I think we still bring in people who have it's interesting because I'm working through this in my head right now about the kind of people we kind of bring in, the irregulars, if that makes sense to you, right? Like if you think about the men and women that join the fire service, they're really not a good fit in a whole lot of other places, generally speaking. They tend to be loyally insubordinate. They tend to be incredibly aggressive. They tend to be physically, incredibly active. We kind of attract those kinds of people. I'm one of those people, that's just who I am. And so I think that we've always attracted those kinds of people. I think that I don't know that there's any greater need than there was in the past, just maybe more availability, if that makes sense. In other words, men and women in the past smoked and drank and they may have had more, and this is an interesting thing to talk about. And I don't know if it's, I'm just making stuff up like I usually do, but prior to my generation, the boomers that came in, and we came in early 70s, we were the kids that grew up in the 50s and the 60s. And so if you think about my old man and his compatriots, they didn't have TVs in the firehouse. TVs came in at the end of their tour, the beginning of my generation's tour, kind of that period right in there, right? The televisions were not a fixture even in fire stations yet. So those cats talked and they spent real time together, because that's what filled those void times, right? They had this really in-depth ability to communicate with one another. And if you remember, when you go, if you think back to some of your family get-togethers with probably and no disrespect to Adam and Rob, maybe your grandfather's group, which would be my dad's group or whatever, or even cats my age and a little bit older, the wild stories and the flamboyant conversation, and that was just something that it came natural, and it was just part of the day. We longed for that connectiveness, right? So I think to Adam's point, we always dreamt that in the future you'll have all these devices and they'll make your life that much easier, and you'll have so much more time to connect and do this stuff. Well, no, the folks that build these things know how addictive they are, and they build the programs in there and the apps and such in order to draw you in and keep you. Like if you see somebody going through their Twitter feed, or their whatever feed, or their Truth Social feed, or their Getter feed, or whatever one they're on, they might be on all three of them. They're locked in there, right? But where's the real feedback other than likes and retweets or smiles or whatever, which are just meaningless garbage compared to this. This is a real conversation, real people in real time, and Adam emoting and Dan ignoring, because that's the kind of guy Dan is. My heart was breaking for you, Adam, personally. Now, unlike Dan, I was moved.
That's why you're calling me. Right?
That's exactly right. So I kept calling you like, stop it. No, I'm just kidding. But to the point, we can do that with each other. And Adam knows that I really did care, and Dan really did care. So if you think about it in the station today, you got to get them to drop this thing or turn off that thing or whatever else whatever else is occupying their time. We used to sleep in an open bedroom with 20, 30 people. And the reason you knew there were people there, because you could see the glow of the cigarettes as they, smoked themselves to sleep. And it was like the Waltons, hey, rookie, did you put the coffee on? Yes, sir. You better have made it strong. Uh-huh. Hey, and it was like, that was there. You all right? Yeah. You learn anything today? Oh, is that all you got? And then, that was constant throughout the day. So I think to Adam's point, it's that human to human connection. And if you think about what COVID did to people, not so much our industry, because we kept coming to work, you know what I mean? But to the people that got locked inside and in their homes, and people who lost their gigs because they couldn't go out and be around people, huge, right? So if you think of why therapists can't, are overbooked now, is because, they were trapped. People were literally trapped in their homes or their, whatever. And so fascinating, right? So for that side of the house, that's why maybe, people can't get in, or there's such a surge of people trying to get reconnected, right? Like, I really think that FDIC and the other fire shows that are out there are going to explode, because we're just longing to get together again and hug each other and slap each other. And well, look at how we were behaving in August. It was like, we showed up for summer school, and then we came right back in April, and it was just insane how happy we were to see each other. I mean, it's just something, real communication, real networking, where you can, and even this is okay, but it's still two-dimensional, right? Like, when you really can see the whole person, and you can, punch each other in the arm, or hug each other, or just be quiet together, say something and just like share that, like, yeah, that sucks. Like, I should probably say it for those of you who don't know, Lila Gillespie, who was a fixture at FDIC, if you're an old timer, you guys may have never met her, but she was around in the days when Big Eddie was running the show. Actually, they call him Fat Eddie, but Big Eddie and Fat Eddie. So anyway, it was back when the IFSI still ran the show. She was a fixture then. She was amazing, and she passed away yesterday. You know what I mean? And that's a really big deal to the FDIC community. You know what I mean? Like, especially to the old timers. If anybody's been there for 20 years or more, they knew Lila. Like, Lila was one of the people you'd see on your way in, one of the people you'd see on your way out. She was just a fixture. And of course, she retired in time and all that good stuff about 5 or 10 years ago. And but there's still, you had that connection. And even though you might have just known her from somebody you saw at FDIC once a year, you were connected. And so I think that's the thing, Adam, is that a clinician now helps you to be connected to humanity in a way, and I think that's, because even in our own industry, we now build private little apartments for everybody where they can shut the door, and and I get it. There's I understand why people might want that, but I also think it's kind of cool when, we were more, when we shared more. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, you both talked about connection, and there's no doubt that that's a key, but whether it be about behavioral health, mental health, substance use, firefighting, relationships, it's a responsibility on both ends, right? One of the first questions Rob asked is, okay, do we have clinical people in the fire service? And historically, absolutely not. I mean, truly, guys like me and guys from New York that I know, that, Drew Kane and Angelo Sacco, that, are clinical, whether or not they started beforehand or afterwards, didn't exist. It was 1% of 1%, because that's just not the person that was attracted or brought into the fire service. But with the clinical aspect of it, it's as much as a responsibility as the individual. And when we talk about cultural awareness, it's a leadership, it's people. I don't care if it's the person with a day on the job or 100 years, like some people. Point is that that shot over a bow. It's a responsibility from the individual and the clinical to come together. And as Adam mentioned about the one clinician that referred somebody because they swore, that could be a ethical or an appropriate referral, because that just doesn't work in his or her realm. In the fire service, we have officers, lieutenants, captains, chief officers, that because they don't connect with somebody, they say, hey, maybe you should go to engine 42, maybe you should go to truck 3. Maybe you just don't fit here. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that that's a discussion, and that's something on both sides of the partnership to look at. What's your responsibility? And I'll say this from a recovery standpoint. I'm in my own recovery. We are all in our own recovery for whatever it is. You don't have to have a diagnosis, and you don't have to have a substance use disorder to be in some sort of recovery. Truly, there's no normalcy. We're all struggling with something, but there's a lot of barriers. And I offer this to everybody, regardless of your position. Which one do you help remove? Adam, you just mentioned in the sense of that you shared some emotion. And I'm sitting here, like Bobby said, and I go, man, good for it. Lay it out there. Other people might be like, how do they let Adam, do that? Well, why don't we allow that? Because there's a lot of men and women that go home and cry and don't feel a part of the organization that gives you the impression that, yeah, you do have a brother and sisterhood. Those barriers are access, awareness, trust, cost, buy-in, the job itself, and really leadership. And again, regardless of rank, I don't care if you have 18 bugles or 0, because there's a lot of great leaders that never took the test to get promoted.
I almost cried once. I scratched my tarp flew at the show, and it put a scratch on the crown. And
I believe that, but I think the other time you cried is when you finally had to pay for a coffee and get that communion money out instead of everybody. Oh, yeah. Okay. So there we are. Take it away, Rob.
The shots are just going off. To go back about a few minutes when we were talking about the kind of the station life and how we become individuals. One of my favorite books is Tribe by Younger, and I think we need to understand the importance of being together and addressing or taking on challenges together. I mean, that's when we pull together, and after 9/11, it always comes up. After 9/11, America was pulled together and we were united, and now we look at society and maybe we're not as united. And so, the devices that we have, ironically, we use those same devices to remind us to reach out to a brother or sister, or to meet up with family or do something with family. But I guess the next question I want to get to, I know we're at 45 minutes, and so I'm going to skip one of the ones, but maybe for both Danny and Adam, what makes for a good clinician focused on, working with firefighters? We kind of been talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would add anything. We kind of did, but maybe just to summarize, I think a clinician that's willing to maybe stop by the firehouse, maybe you start to meet, maybe you start to meet firefighters, ask about the culture, ask about, and on the flip side to what Dan was talking about, we have a responsibility to give an appropriate but yet somewhat unfiltered view of what it's like the impact of, I don't know, normal people missing. I say normal people, civilians missing holidays. That's not really normal. That's the time to come together. And we've all missed holidays. We've all missed birthdays, or that special event at, a child's school, or those kinds of things. And that we carry that around. But for a clinician standpoint, that, to reiterate, because those clinicians also have a heavy caseload, and to understand that we have a responsibility that it's kind of like our kids. And I use this analogy a lot, but I think we want our kids to have better than what we did, but then we become frustrated because they don't appreciate it. but we didn't educate them on the differences, right? I have firefighters that when I bring them on, if the boots that we have don't fit them, I take them to town and I get them new boots, $400 for structural boots that day. That's all they know. They don't know the struggle, right? It's our opportunity to communicate some of that historical perspective, to teach them the lessons. And that goes back to that culture. So I think for a clinician, putting themselves out there, but then it's like, well, when do they have time? Well, if it's important to you, you'll make time to hone in on that human connection. I'm a person-centered therapist. That's the theoretical approach that I use. I use modalities from all sorts of different theoretical approaches, but unless we can't connect, unless there's not trust being built from the very first session, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you get wherever you want to get to. So I think that starts with us putting ourselves out there and being patient with that clinician, because like I said, there's not very many of us that have a background in this. And but the clients I see now, with over half of them being from our industry, I think we are making some headway. And every one of them has said, well, I came to you because I knew you would understand. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that trust. But I think for clinicians and for us, those of us in the industry seeking out clinicians, to be patient, to educate them, to give them an opportunity. And it's not going to happen. It's weird that mental health is the only thing that we try once. And if there's not a good connection, we quit trying. You know, if I got a crappy haircut, I don't stop getting haircuts. I still get my haircut. If I try a restaurant, I don't stop eating because I didn't like it. I find a new restaurant. But mental health, it's kind of like, I tried it. It wasn't for me. Yeah, but we still have unhealthy coping strategies. So I don't know. Maybe the wise Dan DeGryse has something.
Well, I was just going to say the same question to you too, Dan, but also, you know, because I want to lead down to the concept of embedding clinicians into departments. That's the route my department is going. And so what type of experiences or training should clinicians be seeking? I mean, one of the things that my doc that we're looking at embedding, his envisionment is, you know, potentially bringing clinicians in and running them through their practicum. And so that we're you know, trying to get them to that level, and they're affiliated with, and then they're more comfortable with working with first responders. So your thoughts, Danny?
So you're online with it, and it leads to that. It's friggin' training. Bottom line, we know that from the fire service, to save lives is, if you look at any NIOSH report or any injury report, right, you got to train in that. We can't be an expert in everything, but we say we are. And from a clinical standpoint, I'm just going to use myself. I've been doing this for 36 years. Started in 1986, but before that, 4 years in college. Granted, I couldn't get an economics degree, so I got into psychology. So that was just because I fell on it. But I had a professor that said, hey, I think you'd work well with kids. I started working with adolescents back in 1986 and using a behavior modification type approach. And then worked with adults, ended up working with our members as the peer support and EAP for, you know, the second largest fire department in the country, with 8,000 members, active and retired, that we would get 300 calls, you know, a year, and from anywhere on the spectrum, from substance use to domestic violence to bipolar disorder, whatever it is. And any clinician that comes into you and says to you, like they did to me when I was vetting out clinicians for our members, and said that they can handle anything, you kick them out. You have to have an area of focus. The problem is that the higher education world does not have an area of concentration for the fire service. They don't. From a clinician standpoint, you have to have the heart and desire to learn about your population. that's what's good about people like Adam and the rest of those that are in the fire service that have that understanding and now get the clinical degree. Me, I got the clinical degree and then I got in the fire service and I'm like, hey, you know what? I kind of fell into working with our fire service, but it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because I had a balance in my life from the fire service and the trauma to having a conversation with people, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed both. I didn't like the sleep deprivation, which I'm still recovering from, but that's why I lost all my freaking hair. But there's got to be heart and desire from the clinician, and there's got to be something that us, kind of like the Florida Fire Collaborative, created a institution in the state of Florida with a bunch of people where they put on trainings, not only for their membership, but for clinicians. Problem is, we got 50 states. Where do you get that? And I don't know how many higher learning institutions we have, but I would, like I said, I think I only know of one or two. And I have a friend, we all do have a friend, Mike Alora, that works for a college, community college, or sorry, Mike, if exactly where it is, but is trying to focus on that too.
So
why don't we have that? Why don't we have that in the fire service so that we can educate? And the IFF is doing that too. They're trying to give clinicians training. We're working on that right now, which is good. But again, I say 2022, we're really far behind. We think we're in front, but you know, Bobby, we've talked about this. We're at the beginning of the beginning still, and it's going to be the 22nd century.
But that's okay. And by the way, Michael Laura's nickname is we call him the Face. Call him Face. Remember the A team? He's the Face. He's Face. So that's his from his Jersey days, from back when he was in Jersey. So there's a link between self-knowledge and success, right? And if we really want to, if you really think about it, the truly successful organizations, institutions in the world have always concentrated at least 80% of their efforts at the new people, at the recruits, at training them, at educating them, at indoctrinating them. That's where the energy should be, right? So to your point, Dan, we're at the beginning of the training that's necessary if we're going to bring in a more effective, holistic, clinical element in counseling and coaching into the fire service, right? There's the self-knowledge and success are intimately intertwined. And it all begins when you front-end load it at the beginning. If you're just a freaking ambulance chaser and you wait till veterans help, that's not going to work. You've got to get ahead of that curve, and that investment happens in the beginning. And so not only like what you're saying, Dan, where the clinicians have to have an understanding, a desire to have an understanding or an interest in the emergency services world, whether it's fire, EMS, police, that's critical. But also within the industries themselves, there has to be that overarching, kind of just self-knowledge of the importance of it, so that it gets ingrained into that effort, right? And we do a really crappy job of it. If you really think about fire service education, it should, like most great trade crafts, it should probably be 3 or 4 years long. We push kids through in 3 months. You know what I mean? And if you really thought about it, it ought to be an apprenticeship, and it ought to involve a bunch of this, like how to talk to people. Well, here's a clue, buckaroo. You know what I mean? And that's actually, I've seen what you supposedly call work, DeGryse, where you just get people to talk to one another in group settings, but that really is an art. That's a skill, and it's got to be moderated. But then once you train people to do that, they can do it without that control element, and it becomes almost a reflex, right? So, I think it's okay with that where we're at, because somebody was at this point 20, 30, 40 years ago, and they got us to here, and it's okay. Evolution's good. The worst thing that could happen is that somebody decides to create an NFPA standard or an ISO standard that you got to have the psychologist at every fire station. That'll work out well. Yeah. Yeah. Put them right in there with the HR person, somebody with a little clipboard who knows nothing about your job, but is going to tell you exactly how to freaking do it. Yeah, I don't think so. You got to have skin in the game, to quote Talib. And that's what you're talking about. We got cats with skin in the game, guys and gals who are, riding the rigs that can talk about, stuff that stinks and stuff that makes us feel great, because both things are just as important, right? You can't always focus on this is such a terrible job. And not every firefighter is walking around getting ready to jump off a cliff. That's just not true. Most of us are doing just fine. Occasionally, once in a while, one of us needs to talk about the fact that they feel like jumping off a cliff. But most of the time, most of us are just cruising along, singing a song side by side. We're like the Monty Python crowd, always look on the bright side of life. Remember that? Remember that? All the guys on the crosses hanging there. Do-do, 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 do-do. I mean, but I think that's okay. I think that people confuse contentment with happiness. And there's a difference.
I think to the point of like what Rob has said before, you can't force mentorship. Like you can't force any of this stuff, right? It has to develop organically. It has to develop naturally. And I would certainly agree, Chief Halton, that not everyone's like thinking about jumping off a cliff, but I think there's a lot more firefighters on the job today who are not present because of the battles they're fighting within themselves. Like they can't enjoy being at the firehouse because of everything that they're carrying. They can't enjoy not being at the firehouse and being with their family because of everything that they're battling with. And at some point, we have to be able to communicate and teach the ability to take off the armor, to take off the shield, and have a real life conversation to say, yeah, we lost our kitchen table. Yeah, we've lost a tailboard because of TVs and cell phones. That's also because our culture hasn't pushed those protective factors that have served us well from the dawn of time since Chief Halton, you and Ben Franklin were riding on the steamer. I mean, that stuff has been around a long time. And we're also worried about if we do use our language, who are we offending down the hallway? Fine, I just won't talk about it then because I don't want to get paperwork up or charges brought against me because I've upset somebody down the hallway because I used real talk. So I certainly wouldn't disagree with you, but I think we have a lot of guys and gals who are suffering because they can't be present in the moment because of everything that they're carrying around.
Hey, Adam, did you ever submit to FDIC?
I did last year, and after 8 rejection letters, Chief Halton finally let me in.
Oh, okay, because I think you're going to get a denial letter now from the combination of steamer letter and the other. Just guessing.
I actually didn't submit this year. I submitted last year. That was my first time of being successful. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
You
like everything, things will change. I think when we talk about,
I wish we could share the chat window with the audience.
I think when we talk about jumping off a cliff, I think you kind of did that without the parachute at the time. But I'm just saying that we'll see. But as I say to people, good for you, right? And we know that with that. And so what I know Rob wants to get to this question, and I know we only have a few more minutes left in a sense of clinicians, and Bobby, you mentioned it in regards to the firehouse, the fire station. In our arena, we talked about HR. There's some organizations that have hired outside counsel, both legally and clinically, to help our individuals, but not there's barriers to that too. Do people want to work with our population? Do we have the funding for that? Do people believe in it from either end? From my standpoint, just like we've always understood that there's a police psychologist, right? And because that is a traumatic job and lifestyle. For us, I believe that there's not enough people that truly want to be a part of our organization from the clinical world, and that'll take some time. And that mutual relationship and respect and understanding is the responsibility on all ends, both the individual, the higher level institutions, to have an area of focus about cultural competent clinicians for first responders, not just fire, but EMS and dispatchers and all that, because of the different things that we're exposed to, the different traumas and so forth. That's irrespective of the fact that we're men and women first, young and old, with different experiences and different traumas from when we were a kid. I know from the clinical world, and Adam, you probably learned already, and maybe we discussed this, is that when we actually create that connection with the individual and we talk about the traumas they've been exposed to on the job, when they finally truly do trust us, they really reveal a lot of the traumas that have come before that and those scars that have never really healed and have been opened up. And they talk about the things that happened when they were younger, either from a family, being an abusive family, or from being bullied or beat up or whatever it is from when they were kids, or just living on the streets. We could talk about Baltimore or Washington or Chicago or wherever, where San Francisco, and seeing what you see on the streets and that exposure. Where are the conversations happening? Bobby mentioned in a sense of it happened at the kitchen table. Well, there's a lot of locker room discussions too, before and after that. And that happened with a lot of libation, before work, during work, and after work. What's the best method in order to have a great quality of life with all the exposure we have? And I believe it has to do with having somebody that has a clinical understanding, so that when you do need that help, and again, it comes from both sides. We don't want to make it mandatory, but Bob mentions it too, is that if you want to become a doctor, you got to go through undergrad and graduate school and thousands of hours of training. And anyhow, for us, you get a 3-month academy and get out there, and we wonder why people die. Not to say we want academies to be a year, but that education and awareness about behavioral health and the exposure. And one of the comments in here, I couldn't agree more. By Lincoln, talked about, we don't save every life and we don't always save the building. We save most foundations if they're concrete, if they don't break up, but at least in Chicago we do. But the first 50 times I did CPR, I think I only saved 1 or 2 lives. And I was like, holy cow, that was a totally opposite of what I learned in the academy. Do CPR and you're going to save lives. Well, that's not what happens. I also don't believe that everybody that comes in the fire service is going to become an alcoholic, an addict, or divorced. I think there are a lot of protective factors. I think there'd be a lot worse people off if we didn't have the brother or sisterhood, the communication, FDIC, all those other things. I don't want a firefighter to go into a clinician and go, like we've heard before, well, you need to get out of that career. You don't understand. This is what I want to do. I've had some tough days, but never a bad day in the fire service. And never want to come out like, hey, we need all the help in the world. But what we do need is training and education from culturally competent clinicians. So that's why really when Rob and I talked, and we both do, you, Adam, I don't always remember people, but that's because I got CRS, which you know that what that stands for. Guys like you and hopefully women on the job, so we can be better. That's the goal. And it should be a part of the fire service, the EMS world, dispatchers and so forth. But access right now blows because we don't have it. We don't have 100,000 Adams out there.
I just say that what we're looking at trying to do is we're trying to normalize conversation. And I think by bringing the clinician into the fire service at whatever level that is, somebody that visits on a regular basis, just says hello, a couple of comments that were made in the chat that Rochelle talked about communication between person to person has been diminishing. She said that about 30 minutes ago. We didn't get to it. And then Nick talking about clinicians needing to be in the fire service audience, and they have to interact, watch them, know them. So if we normalize conversation and we bring, some element of a clinician into the fire service, generally, we hit the recruits early on so that this becomes part of their basic level training. It's one of the things that years ago when I was a company officer and we were trying to make change in the organization, it was, how do we make change in the organization? Well, generally speaking, I'm not going to change the guys and gals above me. That generation is long gone. But I can infect the ones that are coming in. I'd be the first ones to hit them, the first ones to meet them, shake their hands, to engage with them, bring them along so that they are engaged in the organization at whatever level we need to do, however we want to steer it. But this is where we need to go for mental health. We need to hit these recruits early on. We need to make it so that this is normal for us. You're going to have bad days in the American Fire Service. It is what it is. You're going to have a tough time, going home and coming back. But we're gonna make it so, I guess, bringing conversation back in the fire station, which seems odd, but that's what we're shooting for. So
yeah, and with that, and I know you're going to have your last question, Rob, is that we have to change ourselves too. Is who is that person like Adam that has said, okay, the why? Hey, if it's not Dan, Rob, or Bobby, it's going to be me, for whatever reason that is. If we don't have somebody that does that and stands up and then becomes that culturally aware clinician from within, then we have to go out and find it. And again, I've been in both careers for a long time, and I could tell you, even though I've referred to people that I know, nobody is getting an area in concentration in the fire service or any other, other than the police and veterans to a degree, but not in all aspects. So it's up to us, the leadership. Who is the leadership? And you say the old people. Well, I'm the old people that left already. I'm not too old, but who are the leaders that are going to say, listen, man, let's make this part of the fabric of it? And who is going to be that person that's going to lead that charge? And if you look around, don't find them, look in the mirror, honestly. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I wasn't that person. I found myself in a couple of situations by happenstance, and 36 years later, look where I'm at, that I'm still trying to learn. And I didn't do what Adam did, because I didn't take that leap to do, even though I've had truly thousands of hours of training and so forth, I never went to get that advanced degree.
Well, we must as individuals, it's two-prong or maybe three-prong approach. We have to change. We have to have leadership, which is really nice, that somebody like Adam, being an assistant chief high up in his organization, really at the highest level of leadership, can impact the fire service, impact his own organization, and we got to normalize conversation that we have in the fire station so that we can keep this stuff moving. Adam, you leaned in. I didn't know if you had any comment there.
I did. I think one of the things is, and I certainly agree, when I have company officer meetings, I actually start off now, instead of like going through the agenda and the business of the day, I kind of like a group session. I check in with everybody. What's going on with your family? What's new in your world? What struggles are you having? I think we can all be a peer support person to each other, and I don't mean that in a cliche Facebook meme, but I think we need to get past the pleasantries of not wanting to burden anybody else, right? So if it's going to be one of these things of, hey, Rob, are you doing okay? Yeah, I'm doing great. Be specific, give examples. Well, I only asked because I noticed these differences about you, and I just wanted to make sure that you were good and you just weren't giving me lip service. That's our ability to hold each other up and to support each other, and not just go, well, I asked that question because I know there was something up, but if he doesn't want to talk about it, I'm not going to pry. No, I'm asking you to pry. I'm asking you that if you care about people, it's okay to be a little conflictual and give examples and be specific. Well, I was frustrated when you did this and this. I'm carrying this around. You don't have to have 2 master's degree and a clinician background. You can just be a genuine human being that gives a crap, and just ask, and don't take a general canned answer for face value. Be specific, give examples. And if you're having a struggle yourself, model that, what you're hoping to see in other people. Man, especially as Dan said, the old guys need some leadership to say, look, I messed this up. I'm struggling. I cried in front of people. It's okay. I don't really, there's something about the opinions of sheep don't make lamb chops or something like that. I don't remember. But
Adam, what's your degree? What degree did you get?
Clinical mental health counseling.
Okay. And I asked that because, so it's a master's?
Yeah, it's a master's.
It was a 2-year program?
2.5. Yeah.
And you said 1,000 hours of clinical training with supervision?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and so are you actually, you're going to take the test to be licensed?
I've taken the National Counselor's exam, and for the state of Missouri, I'm provisionally licensed for 3,000 more hours before I'm eligible for full licensure.
Okay.
Supervised 3,000 hours.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's significant, right? I mean, it's like when you go, oh shit, 3,000 hours. Holy crap. My point is that it's a responsibility on all ends when, again, just because somebody has 2 bugles or cross bugles or 3 bugles doesn't make them a leader. Their behavior makes them a leader. Same thing with clinicians. Clinicians get licenses and so forth. They got to do a lot of stuff to get there. But also that fire person has to connect with that individual. It's okay if there's not a connection. If there's not a connection, then try somebody else. I have a lot of people that I used to refer to that are clinical that had no fire background, but were excellent clinicians.
Yeah, if it ain't me, let me find you somebody.
And that's a great clinician. Like you said, a heart surgeon doesn't have to have heart surgery done to them to be a great heart surgeon. They just have to have trained thousands of hours so they don't make a mistake on me. And that's an education for us in the fire service, as we're talking about from FDIC, that we don't have an expertise in. Who is the expert in that? I don't know that person yet. Maybe in 30 years there will be that somebody, but we got to do better. No, Bob, you're not.
No, I was waving to somebody. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm definitely.
well, Nick came back in and he mentioned that, is there a mentorship program to train clinicians up for public safety? And I will say that Dr. Mark, who my department's using, he has no fire experience, really smart individual, and has been helping firefighters for a number of years. He's been doing the IFF webcasts that they've been doing. He says they've been great. So that would be one place I would suggest clinicians start looking towards. But to Dan's point, we need to see getting more of these people in here, and if a clinician is not best suited for it, recommending them off to somebody else that probably be better suited. So
yeah, and Bob, to piggyback up on that is that the IFF has initiated a program. We're in the beta stages that is going to be a culturally aware class for clinicians. It's a lot of C's.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a 2-day class. But again, that's for that's one program. We need to have that embedded throughout the country. But it's a start. Again, beginning of the beginning. So kudos to the IFF for doing that. And again, for Bobby and I, that we banter back and forth, we say a little at times, mean a lot. And if it wasn't for him in this venue, we wouldn't have this discussion. And then where would the access be? People would know about, what'd you call him? Scooter, Adam Scooter, was that it? Okay, so I wouldn't know about that.
I hate you guys.
I do like that, Scoot. And I'm just going to say this is that when you talk about tiers, and I'll say this going back to 2018, and maybe Bobby knows this because he almost didn't have me present. Maybe he did, but when I did the rehearsal, and if you do watch the presentation, I didn't tear up. The day before, I got to the point with my family, when I talked about my wife, I couldn't utter a sound other than crying for about 6 minutes. And I figured, oh man, Rob Maloney, Bobby, Diane, everybody are going to be like, we can't do this. I mean, it was utter silence for 6 minutes. And I was thinking, I got to be thinking, this is going to suck tomorrow.
Well, there were a lot of other reasons why we thought it was going to suck. That was,
Did I lay that out there good enough for you, Bob? I mean, you didn't even.
that was
That was a two-handed, like right down the middle. You knocked it out of the park. Thank you.
I do remember from your, this, we talked about this earlier when we were saying, like, how do you feel? And kind of the reflex of, oh, I'm fine. But I think, Dan, you were the one, and it wasn't your keynote. No, how are you? And just like genuinely, how are you? And that's something that we need to spend a little bit more time with. I mean, we've been talking about how we don't communicate very well and all the distractions that prevent us from communicating. We're terrible at it, but maybe just taking the moment to just taking a few more minutes with your crews and just finding out what's going on in their life, away from work, at work, whatever it may be. So
I did promote the 30-second hug too, which we did on stage with Bobby, which
you and Bobby did a 30-second hug.
don't ever do that again. But I'm just going to close up with a final thought too. Remember, everybody out there, peer support people, everybody, treat everybody as an individual. Not everybody needs to talk to somebody. Sometimes when somebody says they're good, they're good. Because I remember early on, back when Jeff Mitchell was starting all this, we had critical incident stress debriefings. A bunch of us would sit there like, like, I'm good. And then you'd feel guilty because you were feeling good. And these other people got, tears pouring down their faces and boogers coming out. And you're like, damn, you felt like you felt guilty for not feeling bad. You know what I mean? Especially the Catholic guys who are like, I feel great. I guess I'm good. So you'd be pretending to feel bad and stuff. Oh, I feel awful. Like, I don't feel anything. So, and sometimes that's just, because everybody's different. Like Dan said, your background, your everything in your life taints who you are. And not everything affects everybody the same way or at all. You know what I mean? To take movies where, your wife might be bawling her eyes out and you want to put a gun in your mouth because the thing can't end soon enough. You know what I mean? That's life. You know what I mean? That's why God made chocolate and vanilla. Something for everybody. But, I just think, just as we go through this, just keep in mind that a lot of people were just built for this gig and they thrive on it and it fulfills them. And, and they're good. They're just good. You know what I mean? And they got great networks like you characters. You know what I mean? So they're good.
Good talk.
Yeah, good talk.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bobby. That not because I remember early on I was in a critical stress debriefing and you had to talk, and I was like, what is there to say? And I know we've gotten better and we're not to that point at all. And the other thing is it Neapolitan the ice cream for everybody, not just chocolate and vanilla? I don't eat that strawberry stuff, but
yeah, the ice cream sandwiches include the cookies, so it really does encompass everybody.
All right,
getting distracted.
this has to end right now.
Well, that's like going to 31 flavors for guys like Bobby, come on, man. You just make up your mind and you have vanilla or chocolate.
Even Peter put it in the chat. I hate Neapolitan.
I hate
Adam, last comments for you, wrap up.
No, I was just a pleasure. I enjoy the conversation. It could go on for a long time. I think we all have a responsibility to make impacts where we can. And that if there is something that you're experiencing that's got a little bit of juice left in it, yeah, seek out some assistance. There is no shame in getting support or getting help if you need it.
Thank you. Danny?
Yeah, Rob, thanks for getting Adam on here. I'm not exactly sure who invited Bob, but I'd like to refer your first client when you're licensed, Adam. I have somebody in mind. You guys are the best, really great conversation. Like you said, we could talk for, I know we're over time, but Rob, thanks for fielding Adam and the questions. Bob, as always, truly appreciate your presence here. It matters. It does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
The great clinical psychologist, before Rob closes it out, remember these words, ladies and gentlemen, from I think his character was Sidney Friedman on MASH, and he said he was the psychiatrist, and he told his last words to the cast was, just remember, take my advice, pull down your pants and slide on the ice.
We're going to end it off with that. Adam, I appreciate you coming on, brother. It's good to see you. Danny, always great seeing you. Hopefully we'll see each other again. Bobby, thank you for joining. It's always a pleasure to have you part of the conversation. Lastly, thank you all for joining, and those that are going to join in and listen later on. Our next show will be November 30th.
Too soon.
We are the 5th Wednesday. Too soon. We are the 5th Wednesday. So November 30th. Thank you, everybody. And that is a wrap.